Pokemon can be pretty ridiculous. Oh yeah, thinking it eats an entire mountain before it evolves. Then they can knock mountains over in a single hit. How are there still mountains in the Pokemon world? Every time it roars, a volcano erupts. I guess that's how. But you get the idea. Pokemon are crazy. All over the internet, there are listicles of the top 10 or top 20 most overpowered and ridiculous Pokemon, based on their Pokedex entries. And speaking of such Pokemon discussions, if discussing such things are your jam, then you should check out Pokemon Amino. They are awesome enough to sponsor this video even. They're pretty great. Pokemon Amino is an online community all about your favorite franchise. And with over 900,000 users, there's always something new to do, something new to see. You can take quizzes, take polls, show off your fan art, check out others' fan art, and have conversations on forums or even with direct messaging. Set up Pokemon trades, Pokemon battles, all sorts of stuff. Plus, it's completely free, so why not give it a shot, and feel free to follow me on there too. So if you are interested in joining a fantastic Pokemon community, just click the link in the description, and a massive thank you once again to them for supporting this channel. Plus, it's not just Pokemon, there are separate Aminos, separate whole forums for basically anything you're interested in. Sports, Mario, Splatoon, cosplay, cartoons, anime, whatever your interest, there's probably an Amino for you. It's pretty stinking great. So about those listicles online about redonkulous Pokemon, frequently at or near the top of these lists is Magcargo, the king, the champion of ridiculous Pokemon. Its body temperature is said to be roughly 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 9,982 degrees Celsius. That's crazy, right? World-ending heat. For context, that's twice as hot as the surface of the sun. And the sun is about 93 million miles away, and yet it's capable of making summer as hot as it is, and as miserable as it is. So imagine being right next to a Magcargo now. Also, there are of course those fun factoids about what would happen if you brought a small piece of the sun to the Earth, and how it would basically melt everything and possibly destroy the world. So clearly Magcargo is just redonk, right? Well, this video wouldn't have the title it does if that were the case, now would it? This misconception about Magcargo just goes to show how people love to take things at face value instead of doing the research. Not that I blame them though. Thermodynamics is quite complicated. Too complicated for me even, but thankfully some amazing viewers on our Discord server helped me out with this one. People who actually have taken classes on thermodynamics and understand it significantly more than I probably ever will. Let's frame some more references. Everybody knows that lava is hot as heck. Magma even more so. But fun fact, Magcargo is not magma. The key difference between magma and lava is that magma is still underground and under pressure. It's the Earth's core, for instance, whereas lava is made out of the same stuff but is above the ground, spewing out of volcanoes and such. But Lavcargo does not sound as good as Magcargo, so I understand the naming scheme. Anyway, lava gets pretty hot, especially on the Hawaiian volcano of Kilauea, where it can reach temperatures of 2,120 degrees Fahrenheit. Dang. While nothing on Magcargo, that's still insanely hot, right? Like, death hot. So here's a guy just stepping on it. And this guy is just on fire in it, and he just doesn't care at all. All right, so, but Magcargo is still 9 times hotter than that, so surely you couldn't just stand next to it without being cooked alive instantaneously. Anything that's 18,000 degrees would melt buildings around it, right? Right? Well, no. The hottest man-made temperature in a lab was 5.5 trillion degrees Celsius, or about 10 trillion degrees Fahrenheit. And the world is still here. The lab is perfectly fine. We're cool. They're cool. Everyone's cool. But how is that possible? The melting points of most elements is far below that, so what's going on? Well, it's because of thermodynamics, the transfer of heat. Nature likes things being samey and balanced. That's why hot things tend to cool down. You put your cup of hot coffee on the counter, and you'll notice that after a while, the counter where you put it starts to get a bit warm, but your coffee is getting cooler at the same time. Nature is balancing out the two, and the same applies to all of the air around it. Hot things heats up the air around it, while the air cools down the hot thing. But in the case of Magcargo, we now have to deal with it being a living thing, and this is its body temperature, meaning it's actually generating the heat, as long as it's healthy. It won't be cooling down anytime soon. Yet, at the same time, air doesn't really like changing in temperature, and resists it the best it can. The reason the sun is so dang hot to us, despite it being so far away, is because space is pretty darn empty. There's nothing in the way to really reduce that heat much until it gets to the relatively thin atmosphere. Also, the sun is ginormous, if you didn't know. It's freaking massive! Magcargo, while still massive for a snail, is not nearly the size of the sun, and mass has a lot to do with heat transfer. I'll spare you the details of the math, because after all, as I said, I'm not afraid to admit when something is over my head. But this is what all of my thermodynamics knowing friends said. Magcargo is not that bad. Heat transfer is more so about the mass and surface area of the hot thing, rather than the actual temperature of said thing. That 5.5 trillion degree thing scientists made, it was microscopic. The smaller something is, the less its temperature affects the things around it. If the sun wasn't so massive, but the same temperature, we would still be feeling it a lot less, despite it technically being the same temperature. In the case of Magcargo, being a 2'7" and 121 pounds, 18,000 degrees is nothing. Standing close to it would be uncomfortable, sure, and if you were within 10 meters or so, it would be like standing very close to a bonfire. Very uncomfortable. And you would get singed if you stood there for too long, but it won't be melting any buildings anytime soon. Well, unless you told Magcargo not to move at all, at which point it may start melting into the floor a bit. All in all, though, Magcargo is not some world-ending entity because of its body temperature. But it is still ridiculously hot. They probably should have left it at just lava temperature. Magcargo has a body temperature of 2,000 degrees, but this is Pokemon we're talking about. Also, another fun fact, if this Pokemon were accurate given its temperature and energy output, it would be glowing not a red color, but rather a shade of purple, similar to this one. Now, funny story about this, while at a fan gathering with Birdkeeper Toby, I was talking about this to a group of fans, and then one of them asked what color shiny Magcargo is, and how am I so stupid that I don't even consider looking at the shiny versions of Pokemon? I didn't even think about it until he mentioned it, and lo and behold, shiny Magcargo is a pinkish purple. That's pretty dang awesome. Maybe just a coincidence, but maybe not. What do you think? Plus, there's the theory that Magcargo isn't actually all that hot normally. Maybe normally it is just 2,000 degrees or so, like most lava, but it is capable of getting hotter. And when you do have a crazy good Magcargo that is constantly getting hotter like that, it happens to be a shiny variant, glowing that pinkish purple color, because that would scientifically be the proper color to be. The evidence is there to back up this theory, so maybe it's the case. And also lastly, there is the point that maybe 18,000 degrees is just its internal body temperature, which Camerupt is also said to be at. But by the time that temperature reaches the outside of their body, their skin, it's much more realistic and much cooler. Or maybe it's a typo. After all, if you removed 1 0 from that number, it would be pretty accurate. 1800 degrees is very common for most lava in the world. Dang it, Game Freak! You can't just add a 0 and expect everything to be fine! Get your numbers right! Ah! Oh well. Well, what are your thoughts? Let me know down below, and until next time, never stop using your noggin.